The Galien Foundation fosters, recognizes, and rewards excellence in scientific innovation to improve the human condition.
André Malraux said once in one of his novels, "Une vie humaine ne vaut rien, mais rien ne vaut une vie humaine." Human life is worth nothing, but nothing is worth a human life. All these men and women are trying to save human lives. Is there anything more noble than that?
Around the globe, the Prix Galleon is considered as the equivalent of the Nobel Prize for the industry, mobilizing an unrivaled network of Nobel laureates and top biomedical scientists. The Galien Foundation manages an independent, cross-functional, and geographically diverse program of events and sponsorship to brand the best of the best in new medicines and diagnostics. The Prix Galleon is a welcome initiative to stimulate creative research and promote excellence. Barack Obama. The Galleon Awards ceremony is considered the equivalent of the Oscars night for the innovators in the labs and awards every year the best pharmaceutical product, the best biotechnology product, the best medical technology. The Roy Vagelos Pro Bono Humanum Award for Global Health Equity is bestowed to an individual, a company, an academic institution, or a non-governmental agency that has helped to improve the human condition through the application of biopharmaceutical science to problems of developing or underserved populations worldwide.
This is the right event, on the right issue, at the right time.
I thank His Excellency, the President, for bringing Prix Galien to Africa, and I look forward to the day when we will celebrate an African winner of the Prix Galien.
I'm particularly grateful to receive this award.
The awards are among the highest honors in science and commerce because they lead to improvement in the human condition.
The Prix Galleon Awards recognize the world's brightest minds and most innovative companies. They are a true celebration of the hard work required to produce life-changing interventions.
That is what makes us optimistic about the future.
Congratulations to all of you.
Make a difference. Join the Galien Foundation.
Welcome, everybody. It's the conclusion of Galleon Week. It's been a fantastic week. We've had some 15,000 people participating in this week in various webinars on digital health, biotechnology, medical devices, pharmaceutical products, ideas, bold ideas and innovations that can improve the human condition. In a few moments, we'll be hearing from the Prix Galleon Award winners. They represent the very best of the best in innovation that can improve the human condition. With me today, a very special moment in kicking off this press conference is, in fact, the Minister of State from Senegal, Dr. Awa Marie Kosek. Dr. Kosek is playing a very important role in Galleon globally. In fact, she is the chair. She is introducing Galleon Africa, because when we think of innovation that can improve the human condition, we think at Galleon around the world. Dr. Kosek, welcome to Galleon Week. Welcome. I know you're speaking to us right now from your office in Dakar. So tell us a little bit. I know in 5 weeks, you are introducing the Galleon environment, the forum, and the award program for the first time in Africa. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Thank you, Jill. I would like, first of all, to really thank you for the invitation, but also congratulate the winners of this very important prize. I would like to tell you that we are so happy to work with the Galleon Foundation in Africa. And in 5 weeks, we will be in Dakar, but also all over Africa, because it will be a digital event speaking on Africa response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And this will be a very important moment for us, because we will have around 1,000 people online, and very important people, experienced people will take the floor and have a very interactive discussion. I can tell you also that we will have people like the Director General of WHO, Tedros. We will have also the Africa CDC. We will have invite people from very far. Ellen Clark, who will tell us a little more on what is the socio-economic impact in the resource extractive resources in Africa and in the world. We will have Peter Piot. We will have Nobel Prizes. A lot of people and experts will be with us, but we will have also students. We are taking the best student of the University of Africa, Anglophone and Lusophone, but also Francophone Africa, from South Africa to the Maghreb. This is really an opportunity. And we will have also to give them capacitate them on leadership. This is a very important time for us because it will be also an intergenerational discussion and experience.
Dr. Kosek, you're always so humble in mentioning many of your colleagues from around the world who have been on the front lines of infectious disease. And you just mentioned to us right now, of course, that this year's theme, appropriately, sadly, is on COVID-19. You're also an infectious disease specialist, and you've been on the front lines around the world, certainly in Africa and around the world, on other pandemics, other epidemics that we've been concerned about, Ebola, HIV as a virus, and so forth. You've worked with many of these people around the world. You have an appreciation for the importance of a global community that's driven by innovation that can improve the human condition. Could you reflect back a little bit on some of the things that you experienced during the period where you and Dr. Peter Perot from the World Health Organization were working on AIDS, and later on in your career as an infectious disease specialist and responsible for the Ministry of Health on Ebola? What learnings could you share with our Galleon community right now that we should be thinking about?
Innovation is key. Innovation has done a lot when we look at the health in countries, but also in the world. And experience on HIV/AIDS has showed me that if we don't innovate, if we don't look out of the box, we just repeat what has been done, but you are not improving. And when I work also on malaria, because I was also sharing and the CEO of Rollback Malaria, we had there to innovate with when we can say the rapid diagnostic test, for example, but also when we look at nets, it was before nets only, but now after we look at impregnated nets, because this is an advance for the past. A lot of things, when we look also at COVID-19, I can tell you that in Africa, we had a lot of innovation. It is why during our meeting, we will have to invite particularly young people who have been able to look on robots to distribute medication and distribute meals for the people in isolation. We had also the opportunity to speak with some young innovators who have been able to create respiratory machines, also masks. Only the mask has been a lot of innovation in that. Now, it's just to say that when you look at the world in general, but when you look at different domains, but health is not out of that, innovation is key, and Africa has not been out of this innovation.
To that point, I know many times when we think of digital health, and I know this year you're celebrating digital health innovation. Now, from my own journey around the world, I've found that digital health means different things to different people and different regions. One of the great things I found in Africa is actually the use of a different form of digital health, maybe controlled by a smartphone, but actually delivering medications from a central source locally. And could you share with us your perspective? Because I also understand that the use of drones that deliver medications to remote communities is actually being pioneered in Africa. It's not being pioneered in North America, it's being pioneered in your region, in your neighborhood. And so I often find that the use of even non-smartphone cell phones as a digital advance in communities in Africa takes on very different importance. Could you reflect a little bit about the differences of digital health innovation?
Digital in general is very well used in Africa. In some countries, you have, it can be 90%, 70% of the people with smartphone, for example. And this is an opportunity for Africa. And what I have seen looking at medication, for example, for the supply chain management and to avoid shortages, we had at one time used smartphone just for nurses who are very far to be able to discuss with the central store and to be able to avoid to have shortages of some medication. You look at the drones in Rwanda. This has been something fantastic. First of all, it was for delivering of blood, but after they use it for medication. And for we have also a lot of experience on telemedicine with somebody very far in rural area with only one small device where they can put it on on a pregnant woman and just look at it. And this is going after to the capital, and a gynecologist, for example, can say, attention, you need to do this or that, or you need to evacuate this lady. So this is something now we are using, but I need to confess that it is not always done at large scale. It is often some experiences, sometimes limited. And what is our challenge is to put it at large scales. And this is one of our challenge, and maybe what we would like to see more in Africa. But all the ideas are there and all the experience also, but it cannot be just one zone, one rural area. It needs to be everywhere.
You know, thank you for that. And, you know, often I think of the past chairs of Galleon and regions I've had the privilege of working with. You have an incredible background as a clinician, as an inventor, as a business leader, as someone committed to public health and public service. Right now, you're a minister of state. You've also, I believe, been a minister of health in Senegal. Is that correct?
Yes.
You've been CEO of a company. You've been a liaison and a supporter of the World Health Organization. You've worked with some of the great infectious disease specialists in the world. Could you share with us your perspective about infectious disease and the need for collaboration? Why is it so important? Why is it so important that the world open itself up to each other in terms of ideas, collaboration, the exchange of science, and how the connection between Africa and Europe and North America and Asia is so important to our world's health?
Infectious disease was looked as a problem of the developing world. It's Africa, it's Asia, it's sometimes in some countries in Latin America, but no more infectious disease really in the north, and particularly epidemics. And the COVID-19 pandemic has shown that we have one word. The world is a global village, and we need to know that we can learn from each other. We have to share our experiences. Today, because of Ebola was in Central Africa, in the Democratic Republic of Congo particularly, but came in 2014 in West Africa. It was new for us. We didn't know what was Ebola. I am a teacher. I was, because now I am more in another position, but I was a professor at the university, and I was training and teaching that Ebola is a disease of Central Africa, not our disease. And when Ebola came to West Africa, it was a surprise. And because we didn't have time before to look at what happened elsewhere, we were surprised, and we took a lot of time to do a good job. Donc, Ebola has been for us a learning process. And when we look at COVID-19, maybe why Africa is today, maybe the continent less infected, has less cases, has less death, and we have a very poor health system. Maybe it's because of experience. Maybe it's because we have learned to deal with infectious disease and with epidemic, but also a lot of other things like maybe mutation of the virus, etc. But what I want to say is that the North, the Europe, the US need to learn also from Africa and need to look at what happened in Africa. And I think that this will help us. We need to learn from them, but they need to learn from us. And this will maybe change the way the world will work in the future. It is why in our program for the forum, we have put one session, it's the last one, on post-COVID-19. Things will change. Things will change, and the digital will be more used. We need to know that we have more experience on that, and maybe it can help also to avoid all this travel we are doing, all this meeting we are doing, using more tele conferences, all this. So it's just to say that infectious disease is no more the problem of the developing world, is a world problem, and we need to look at it like this.
I'm so glad that you're part of the Galleon community now. I want to congratulate you on your role as chair of Galleon Africa. I want to also acknowledge your leadership role in chairing the summit, the forum, on December 8th through the 11th in Dakar. I think that will be incredible. I've seen the program. I urge everyone who is interested to participate. You graciously began our conversation acknowledging the Prix Galleon winners. You're about to announce in 5 weeks the first Prix Galleon Africa Digital Health Award recipient. For you, what does the Prix Galleon mean in terms of the recipient, the nominees? Could you share your philosophy of what it means to be a Prix Galleon nominee?
Just maybe it is not like this everywhere in the world, but in Senegal and in a lot of Francophone Africa, when you are a pharmacist and you finish your and have a graduation, you just say that you will say on looking at Galien. Galien is your patron, we can say. And it is why being part of the Galien family is important. But also we have seen the foundation working for now 50 years and looking at innovation, looking at technology, looking at something not people used to do. And this is what I was saying at some moment ago, the issue of looking out of the box. And Galien is also like this. It is really looking at things who can help the world, and not things you see every day, but also the ethical issues we are putting on the table. And we have also with Galien looking a lot at young people, but also at women. During our forum, we will have one day, it will be women in the STEAM, women in mathematics, in science, and all this is important, and all this is the Galien philosophy. It is why we are very happy to be part of this family, and we are driving now the Galien Forum and the Galien Prize in Africa. And this will be not this time the prize because of COVID. It has been a little bit disturbance, but we will explain to people what is our now procedures and call for application. And we would like to have the prize now from Africa being presented and see the selection and the winners in 2021 in Dakar. And this will be part also of the jubilee of the 15 years anniversary. We will be in Dakar. And I would like to thank Susan Sue Desmond Hellman. She's the chair of your Galien International Prize, yes, and US Prize. And she, after a lot of discussion, I think they have decided now to present the winners in Africa at the forum. They will do every 2 years in Africa. And this is for us an honor, and we will welcome them there. And 2021 will be for us a key year with a lot of activities.
We look forward to being with you in 2021 in Africa. I would say while it's an honor for you, it is an exchange and honor for all of us who are part of the Galleon community and believe that innovation can improve the human condition. What a wonderful beginning to our press conference and the introduction of our 2020 Prix Galleon Award recipients. I think you have given through your comments great honor to all the participants, all the nominees of Prix Galleon. Thank you, Dr. Kosek, for joining us today. Thank you for championing Galleon in Africa. Thank you for all the work you're doing for patients around the world. We wish you continued success and blessings in your great work. Thank you for joining us today. Now on to our press conference.
Thank you.
So now we return. It's a pleasure to have everybody back again. And it is from Africa. We are back in North America. We're here with our Prix Galleon Award nominees. It is my pleasure to introduce someone very precious to Galleon. Obviously someone who has been very involved. He has his dog with him today. That's wonderful. It's always great to demonstrate that we're not only involved in the human condition, we're involved with every creature that has a heartbeat that we support. Dr. Mike Rosenblatt, who is one of the Galleon Foundation committee chairs. You've seen him over the last few days moderating many of our summit panels. Dr. Rosenblatt now is the Chief Medical Officer at Flagship Pioneering, but he has a great history in championing innovation that does impact the human condition. Few people know that Dr. Rosenblatt has been involved in drug development and discovery. He has been involved in preparing the next generation of scientists as Dean at Tufts Medical. He has been a president of one of Boston's major medical centers, and we're privileged to have him with us today and introducing our 2020 Prix Galleon Award recipients. Mike, to you.
Thank you, Gil. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for being so flexible. We've witnessed some of the things that happen when you're working from home. and my dog, our grandpuppy, was eager to participate in this session. So I'm very proud of my role as co-chair of the Galleon Forum, and I'm also a member of the award selection committee. And I first of all want to just say how wonderful and insightful those comments from Dr. Kosek were. And they just emphasize how important innovation is in every single aspect of healthcare, and we continue to need more of it. And you know, the Galleon's a wonderful organization that celebrates this kind of innovation. It celebrates the inventions that the prize winners are representing today, and it celebrates the inventors. So all of that has came together during the week and last night with the announcements of the awards. And I'm very much looking forward today to having a panel discussion that will involve our award winners, in which we are going to hear about how innovations migrate from an idea to an actual product that can impact human health. We're going to have the panel discussion together with my partner, Gil Bash, who's the managing partner for global health at Finn Partners. So in order to get us underway, I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves in the following way. Give us your name, your title, your company, the product that got the award, so exciting, yesterday, and just one sentence on what the product does, how it contributes to human health. So I'm going to begin with Sang Chang, please.
Yes, so thank you very much. My name is Sang Chang, and I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of the Rare Disease Research Unit here at Pfizer. And the award was given to a medicine that we developed that we refer to as Vyndaqel and Vyndamax. And this medicine is designed to stabilize an otherwise unstable protein that's associated with patients or individuals with either wild type or hereditary transthyretin amyloid cardiomyopathy, or ATTR-CM for short.
Great. Brett Monia.
Yes, thank you. And congratulations to you, Sang, and your colleagues for Vyndaqel. So Brett Monia, I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Ionis Pharmaceuticals. Our award was for a medicine referred to as inotersen, or Tegsedi. This is an antisense medicine that was approved in 2018 for a different form of transthyretin amyloidosis than what Sang just referred to. This is for the indication of polyneuropathy, a rare genetic disease that is essentially a lethal disease, which targets, which works through an antisense mechanism of action by targeting RNA and blocking the production of that disease-causing protein. That's the medicine, and it has provided tremendous benefit to patients to date around the world.
Terrific. Mel Spiegelman, please.
Hi, my name is Mel Spiegelman. I'm President and CEO of the Global Alliance for TB Drug Development. The product for which we very thankfully received the award is called Pritomanid, and it is used in a disease, tuberculosis. And just to briefly outline tuberculosis, as many of us in the North, and I truly appreciated Dr. Kosek's comments, which I hope we can get into in more detail later, that tuberculosis remains the largest single infectious disease killer on this planet. And specifically, the product that we were fortunate to get approved in combination with 2 other drugs, because tuberculosis has to be treated with other drugs, has taken the most resistant form of tuberculosis, called extensively resistant tuberculosis, and taken that from being almost a death sentence when we started the development of this product, with death rates or success rates, let me say, in the order of 20%, and move those to the order of 90% cure rate, at the same time decreasing the duration of treatment from 2 years or more to 6 months, decreasing the number of drugs that would be used, and also doing away with the need for daily injections. So it has had a potentially tremendous impact on families, on patients certainly, and on healthcare systems.
Thanks, Mel. And now in a category that's new this year for the first time for the Galleon Awards, Corey Mccann in Best Digital Health Product.
Thank you very much. I'm Corey Mccann. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of a company called Pear Therapeutics, and we are thrilled to receive the Prix Galleon Award for our product called Somryst. Somryst is part of a new therapeutic modality called prescription digital therapeutics, or PDTs. And these are products that use software to directly change human biology and treat disease. Our Somryst product is FDA approved and indicated for the use to treat chronic insomnia. And this is a product that really provides patients with an alternative to some of the habit-forming medications like benzodiazepines and like zolpidem.
Terrific, thanks. Well, let's open the discussion. And the way we're going to work this is Gil and I are going to, at different points, ask questions and change subjects for the panel. I might start with one. And, you know, we hear a lot about how fabulous these inventions are. A couple of weeks ago, the President of the United States said they're a miracle. But they're not a miracle. We know that. There are teams that are working in an orchestrated way for a long period of time, and they get infusions of oxygen, namely investment, in order to succeed. So miracles are something unexpected, inexplicable, that come by surprise, drop out of the heavens. That's not what any of the prize-winning drugs that you worked on are. They're the result of hard work and staying focused for a long time. Similarly, as Gil said about a moonshot, Vice President Biden said they're a moonshot. And we know you can, with high probability of success, with a team of engineers and enough money, get to the moon. But you can have a very talented group working on something in life sciences. The probability of success is much lower. So, you know, we try to explain to the public and to the media how difficult and challenging, probably the most challenging process on the planet for making inventions that will change human health. But by the time we get to your awards, these are beautiful storybook things, but we know that you encountered speed bumps along the way and maybe even some near-death experiences. And if you're willing, I think it would be really helpful to people to understand how real these challenges are. And if some of you could share some of the difficulties you encountered on the way, succeeded, and still are getting this award.
And Mel, you come from an organization that is, you know, relatively tight-knit and small. I think you have 50 people on staff altogether, something of that nature. You're covering the globe. Could you share with us a little bit of the struggle? Because I think people look at innovation as, you know, wow, you know, we make it happen. You know, what were the difficult moments, as Mike says?
Oh gosh, where to start? Yeah, I think also many of you may not be aware, we also are a not-for-profit organization. So we are totally dependent upon philanthropic funds from donors, from what are called bilaterals, governments around the world, and multilateral organizations that donate to organizations like us. So getting the resources in order to do the work that we do is a truly, truly ongoing struggle. in terms of being able to afford what is, I'm sure everybody here would agree, not an inexpensive proposition, the research and development to bring new products to those who need them. We also, though, are very fortunate because we have great partnerships. And part of the model that we work on is, in fact, partnering for a whole variety of reasons or for issues with many of the for-profit pharmaceutical companies. And I won't go into detail here, but people sitting around the table today, so to speak, have been our partners at various points in times, and their help is also invaluable in terms of reaching the final goal. And then obviously, despite the fact that we're not for profit, we are subject to the same hurdles of everybody else, which means that most things we work on in this arena do not make it. That is simply the reality of science and the product development these days, and living through those ups and downs. And I have to say, we've likened Protominate to cats. It has had at least 9 lives where it could have been killed many, many times along the way. And perseverance and good science and objective looks at data, all of those characteristics are things that I think we all would agree we need to truly focus in terms of getting the end result, which is to bring the appropriate products to the people who need them. So those have been, I think, the major hurdles that we face.
So Mel, I want to take your, first of all, thank you. I want to take your experience and Corey, if I understand this correctly, digital therapeutics have long been talked about, but it's a totally new category. It's a new category, certainly digital health for Galleon, but it's a new category also for the Food and Drug Administration and for prescribers. Reflecting on what Mel said, could you share with us sort of some of the darker, difficult moments and sort of share with us why digital health is going to be so critical to our future, our personal futures?
Gil, I think just the amount of novelty that we approach at Pear on a day-to-day basis is frankly humbling. It's absolutely humbling. And this is a new therapeutic class. It's a new treatment modality. And I think just to put this into perspective, Pear's reset product for the treatment of substance use disorder related to alcohol, cannabis, cocaine, and stimulants was the first piece of software to receive treatment claims for the treatment of any disease. So not just for substance use disorder, but it's really the first of its kind. And it is incredibly fulfilling to be able to address that type of novelty. It's also incredibly humbling. And when we think about how I spend my day and how my team spends a good deal of its time, it's really educating the world about what it means to adopt change in healthcare. And that is incredibly complex. There's education of patients such that they can understand things like how to fulfill a prescription digital therapeutic or a new piece of software. There's change of clinicians so that they can understand how to prescribe a piece of software. There's change on the payer side to educate a payer as to how they might pay for a piece of software. And then there's the creation of infrastructure to be able to deliver these products seamlessly and securely throughout the value chain. So there is no shortage of novelty. I think that we are incredibly privileged to have what is just a terribly talented cross-disciplinary team that spans technology, healthcare, and medicine. And I think, as you said, there's no time like the present to be able to adopt these technologies. I think that COVID has brought access to the fore for all of us here. And we believe that just as we've seen the adoption of telemedicine, that we are seeing the adoption of digital therapeutics to really be able to provide care for people who, in a social distancing context, do not have the ability to access that care.
That's an important point. You know, I want to pivot. Both Sang and Brett are dealing with rare diseases, and I want to pick up on something that Mel and Corey said, and I think Mike has been there as a scientist, as a physician. And I wanted to ask Brett and Brent a key question: the role of the patient in discovery. Now, obviously, you've done great things, Mike, and I wanted to weigh in on this too, as a respondent, if he doesn't mind. The role of the patient, we sometimes forget we're dealing with people who have really pressing needs. Would both of you share a little bit, and Mike also reflect on what it is to invite a person with a serious, rare condition to your table as a partner in drug development? Sang, would you go first and then Brett follow?
No, sure. No, thank you. That's a great question. I think from our perspective, when we start in a new disease area, clearly that's the importance of the investment in understanding the basic biology to understand and decipher the underlying basis of these diseases under consideration, particularly those for which there are really clear unmet needs. But the equally important aspect of our work is the importance of understanding and be diligent regarding early interactions with patient communities to fully appreciate the challenges in hand that they bear, and then working with them as well as the experts in the community to really consider what would represent a true therapeutic concept that we could bring to bear for this patient indication. For us, it means sometimes considering different technologies, including emerging technologies that represent the best fit for that disease. But the selection and choice as to the route by which we actually approach these different problems starts with the conversation with that patient that we meet. I will also add that the patients provide another important component to our research, and that's the passion and commitment that we bring to bear in our work every day. And in many instances, it is very personal, and I can share with you an example in our case.
Please.
For this product that we developed with Vyndaqel, we had an example of a colleague in this instance. Her name is Brenda Cooperston, who is our Chief Development Officer here at Pfizer in rare disease, who, when working with this particular indication, recognized that some of the symptoms that were associated with ATTR-CM in her father. And she was able to make a very early diagnosis and therefore bring access to treatment very early to delay or arrest the progression of this disease in her father. And it's really stories like this and these interactions that truly remind us what we do is really incredibly powerful as scientists and clinicians, and truly provides us with that motivation and reminder of what we do every day is personal. But it starts with the patient.
Yeah, I think that's such a, I mean, Brett, you talked about this as sort of needle in the haystack patients. I don't want to use that term, but you said very rare. So obviously ultra rare. And, Sang has just commented on this. We're doing this for people. How have you and your colleagues sort of brought in the people into the discovery process?
Yeah. So Gil, it's all about the patient. Inotersen, the success of inotersen is all about the patient. And I would also add the physicians that care for those patients, very importantly. And I'll tell you a story. Inotersen began, believe it or not, with a seminar that I gave back, before I was CEO. I was in the lab and I was running drug discovery, and we were developing a new platform called Antisense. And I gave this seminar, and after the seminar, a physician came up to me named Dr. Merle Benson at Indiana University. He says, I think I have an idea on how you can apply your technology to this rare disease. And we talked for a while, and I went to visit him at Indiana, and I asked him, so how many patients are there, Merle? And he said, well, I see 6 or 8 every week. And, that's a lot. And he's a center of excellence in amyloidosis. And I said, okay, but it's going to be hard for me to justify a new drug development program based on that information. So I went around and I went to see other experts, and John Burke in Boston, or Phil Hawkins in London, and Dave Adams in Paris. And then I knew that this disease was endemic to certain areas, such as Portugal. And I made my way to Portugal, and I met Dr. Teresa Coelho. And she was prepared for me. She was teaching me about the disease, and as everybody was in the course, and how little was known about the natural history of the disease. And she said, Brett, why don't you join me in this conference room over here? And in that conference room, there was about 30 to 40 individuals either suffering from TTR amyloidosis or their family members were there. And they saw their generations of family members passing or suffering from this disease. And they told me their stories. And it was really that really shocked me into the conclusion that we needed to start a drug discovery program here. And that was really just the beginning, because now I needed to convince my company, Ionis. I mean, I wasn't the CEO at the time, and so I had to make the case for this disease. There's a large unmet medical need. We can find the patients. We don't understand the natural history of the disease, but we'll figure it out along the way. And we did. We found the drug and we moved it forward. And you mentioned speed bumps. How about roadblocks? How about dozens and dozens of roadblocks? And a situation in which we encountered safety signals and those and intolerability signals that we didn't know if it was disease or drug, because so little was known about the disease. And in fact, people even in my own company started losing hope and saying, do we want to continue this program? And really what it came down to was the dedication of the physicians who believed in us, a core group of people at my company who huddled down and said, we're going to do this. We're going to bring this medicine to patients, and the patients who said, we need this. And I'll never forget the day when I walked into the data room and we uncovered the results, and the p-value was 0.00000008. And it was just like, and everybody was in tears. We were so happy. And it was really all about that first encounter with the physicians and the patients that said, we're going to make this happen. And without that, we wouldn't have got through those roadblocks.
Mike, I want to put you on the spot for a second, because you're a co-chair of the forum. You're on the committee that selects award honorees, but you've also been a professor to medical school students at Tufts and Harvard and other places. Could you reflect on what you've just heard and talk about what we need to do in terms of our medical education system to bring what we've just heard from these 4 Prix Galleon award winners? Can you share what our medical school students are learning right now to make that real for them?
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to give at least my view of what I think is important. And we all tend to make judgments based on our own experience. So when I started embarking on this journey as a physician scientist, I realized that when I would talk with my friends and colleagues about what training was like in medicine, the things that I remembered most and the things that motivated me weren't, there was this complicated disease and we figured out what to do for this patient. It was a puzzle. I actually remembered the patients. 10 years later, there was a handful of patients. There were a handful of patients who I remembered vividly. And that taught me something about at least what made me click and what I think makes most physicians click. And then let's fast forward a few decades to the time when I was the chief medical officer at Merck. And as chief medical officer, I was supposed to be the voice of the patient to inside the corporation, to the various constituencies, R&D, the commercial organization, the global organization, et cetera. And I had an epiphany as I was going around. I had seen a lot of patients during my time in the practice of medicine. And I think I did what doctors do presumptively, which is I assumed I knew what patients wanted and that I could speak for them. And I did that quite freely. And then I realized, actually, I haven't spoken to the patients with this disease, and I don't really know. And when I had that epiphany, I reorganized our whole group, the whole chief medical officer group, to make it oriented towards patients. And there are many positive spin-offs that came from that. One is when you actually talk to patients, when you bring them into these companies or you bring them into a medical school setting to They are very motivational. They are inspirational. They give you the reason that you're working. Secondly, when you actually start this path from idea to a product, I think it's really important at the very, very beginning, the first steps, to imagine who is the patient who's going to benefit. What is the profile of that patient? Because that steers you towards what you have to do testing on before you get into the clinic, preclinically, and then once you're in the clinic. And then Brett talked about side effects and roadblocks, et cetera. Along the path, there are many ways and many reasons to kill what was a promising product candidate. And I think the job of the people who've really interacted with patients is to figure out a way to do what I call, well, the FDA calls it safe and effective. I think doctors and most of the world call it benefit risk. I call it risk. There's an actual risk of the disease. That's why you started out to work on something, and an untreated disease with a certain probability is going to cause complications in some of the patients who have it. A drug is going to, no perfectly safe drug, it's going to have some probability of problems. And so when you do if you're informed by the patient, you can actually do a risk analysis and figure out if things are favorable for those patients with that illness. So it all comes back to the same message.
Stay with that for a second. I want to use exactly what you've said for a question to our panelists, Mike. You're always so insightful, and thank you for that. So you brought up some of the sort of like recounted the dark moments that our panelists face. Some of it is stigma, some of it is side effect profile or not certain about the clinical trial design. I want to pivot off of your insights and ask our panelists a question now about culture, the culture around innovation. You know, Mike, you always inspire every place you go, and that's why we turn to you. So each of you faced sort of difficult moments, roadblocks to success. I want to start with saying, because, you know, in a big company like Pfizer, there's so much going on. You know, rare diseases, of course, you know, people sort of say, gee, we're focusing on these huge non-communicable illnesses. And then you come along with the team and say, we're going to focus on rare disease and I need money. I'd love to hear from you and the other panelists, how you each as a leader inspire a culture that actually is able to be sustainable through dark moments, because I often believe that culture can squash innovation. So saying to you, what did you do with your team during those dark moments that brought it from step A to the next step?
I think that's an incredibly great question. I think for us, is the culture is that the recognition that the suffering of a patient, in our case for a rare disease, is really no different to that of one who may be subjected to a disease that's more common. So our culture and mission is really to try to find solutions for all patients where there's clear signs of unmet medical need, and for which we have technologies that we can apply to address those pathology that they might present with. For us, that requires two aspects of things that we typically and frequently talk about. One is courage. Courage when things are not going the way that you like them to be, to continue on the path, because we understand, you know, very well what the challenges are associated with development of that particular drug. And there will be instances, as you heard, where they don't go exactly the way that you like. But if there's excellence, which is the second point, in the science that went behind the development of the concept for the patient population that we're trying to address, couple that excellence with the courage to continue on a path that we feel strongly about, and couple that with the motivation that we talked about earlier for the importance of bringing these medicines to individuals, irrespective of the rarity or commonality of that disease, is a large piece of what we do every day here at Pfizer. And
That's
that's something that we're very, very proud of.
That's great. Now, I want to take what you said and swing over to Corey, because Corey, you face those challenges, but I'm gonna assume there's another challenge here that you didn't mention, which is stigma. You know, people who are dealing with mental health related issues, behavioral health related issues, which is medical health ultimately, are neglected. It sounded like you were not just pioneering a category that had to get regulatory review, you are pioneering a therapeutic solution for a population that often is viewed with stigma. How did you internalize that in terms of mobilizing people to sort of like overcome the challenge?
We certainly deal with stigma across our patient population, and in some cases, what I would refer to as nested stigma. So I think there is a general stigma around just mental health conditions broadly. And then when one moves into different addiction conditions, there is a stigma within addiction conditions. And then within addiction, everyone's focused on opiate use disorder. And there's an even greater stigma on things like cannabis, cocaine, and stimulant disorder. So we deal with this challenge on a day-to-day basis. And frankly, my team finds it energizing. I think that we've all really today focused on some of the roadblocks that we faced in bringing these products to market. But we've all been able to do that because of the quality people that sit within all of our respective organizations. And when I think about my team, I think that stigma and the stigma that these patients are facing is probably the last thing that they think about as their head hits the pillow in the evening. And the first thing that they think about as they wake in the morning. They're just motivated by this as a challenge. And really, I think that's the way that we've been able to attract what is a cross-disciplinary set of teammates who are able to align around the patient and align around the benefit to the patient and really addressing things like stigma.
Yeah, thank you for that. Mike, over to you.
Great. Well, I want to sort of move us in a similar vein, but slightly different direction, which is, you know, as I look at this group and the fantastic, innovative things you've accomplished, I don't see anybody around this panel resting on their laurels. So you've had a great success. You've been rewarded for innovation. And now the question is, what do you do in your own companies to spur innovation? It's not easy. At least the way I view it is we set up force fields that impede our own ability to be innovative. We have review committees in which everybody can look good by telling you everything, all the reasons you shouldn't do something, and eventually the accumulated risk is too high to go forward. You've managed to thread the needle once. Now, how can you repeat innovative success? What do you need to do as leaders inside your companies?
Maybe Brett, you'll take that on.
Sure, happy to. Thanks. I think it's a great question, and I think it still comes back to culture. It really does. You know, when I first got into the pharmaceutical industry, and I came right out of graduate school, and I moved in. I got experience in companies where the culture was kill a drug early, and kill a drug early because it was expensive to do drug development, and if there was any warts that you encountered, kill it. And I never understood that. At Ionis, we have a completely counter culture to that idea, in the sense of it's a culture in which the patient is at the center, and it's a culture of yes, not no. Yes, which drives scientific innovation to people. They're not told what they should work on. They're told to innovate, and through innovation came drugs like inotersen and Spinraza, another winner of Prix Galleon a few years ago, and so many other drugs that are coming to patients. And it's a culture of yes that drives new drugs for patients with great unmet medical needs, regardless of the size of the population. We will develop drugs if we think we can impact a disease, whether it's tens of patients or millions of patients. And it's that culture of yes to innovation and new ideas for drug development, and a culture of in which the patient is at the center is really what drives our company and any company that will have a long runway for success and innovation and bringing many new medicines to patients. It's really that culture. You can always find a way to bring a drug and get it to patients if you have a medicine that's really going to impact their disease. And it's really about the patient, and it's really about a culture of yes, I would say.
Wow. Mel, what's next on the horizon to Mike's question?
Well, I guess two things that I'd like to address in response to Mike and in response to this issue of culture, which is clearly so important. And both of my observations now, I think, center around every single challenge is an opportunity, and that's inherent in our organization. Number one, we're so small. And on the one hand, that's a real problem because we have everybody doing 10 jobs at the same time. On the other hand, we really don't have time for big committees and 10 steps of approval and looking at 100 pages of documents. It's cut to the core, cut to the chase. What's really important, etc. That's what we need to deal with. That's what we need to solve. And right away, you get the right people in the room, which is no big deal because we're all on the same floor in one city for all intents and purposes. We do have a small group in South Africa because of the clinical work that gets done in Africa. But it really lends itself to truly, number one, working efficiently. But number two, then it does get into the issue of culture because people find that type of an atmosphere so invigorating. The sense of, I hate to use the word empowerment, but that everybody in the organization feels they truly have a stake in what's going on and they have a say and an influence on what will come out of the organization and what we'll be able to accomplish. From the point of view of culture, motivation is such an unbelievably important criteria, as I think we've all lived through and know. And here again, our challenge is our opportunity. Our patient population are the poorest of the poor in invariably the poor countries of the world. And even though TB is, the largest killer on an infectious disease basis in the world, and there are probably 8-9 million people afflicted around the world, but it is, where do we see TB? We see TB in the slums of India, in the favelas of Brazil, in the townships in South Africa. And what we really do is make sure that practically each of our employees gets a chance through their work to actually experience what it is to go to those places, see the patients, see the environments that they live in, and really understand why are we doing this work. And I can't tell you how important it is for every individual who comes back, and some of us spend half our lives in these places working with our partners, the clinics, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you.
That provides the motivation.
Thank you. Mike, you wanted to add something.
Well, I wanted to ask Corey specifically and others, because there's a dimension to this that we haven't discussed, which is all this innovation and the culture that you speak about. It requires oxygen, right? It requires funds.
Money.
And investment. And, there's all kinds of innovation, and some of it is incremental, and you know that incremental has much less risk. But what you've done, and the reasons you've gotten the awards, are you've really moved into new territory. And I can understand how you could motivate your own organization through your leadership in selecting people. But how do you get investors to say, hey, that's so risky, I want to invest in it?
Yes, new therapeutic area that the FDA hasn't dealt with before. Sure, I'll write you a check. Corey, what are your thoughts there? I mean, look, people forget that our industry we have brilliant people, but to Mike's point, it requires financial support, whether you're Pfizer or a startup or a not-for-profit, money. How did you deal with it, Corey?
Mike and Gil, I think you pose a great question here that frankly I spend a good deal of my waking hours addressing. I think that we're quite privileged to have just visionary investors who are supportive of the company and who have from day zero really seen where this whole sector is headed. I think with that said, what we're doing is really an opportunity that sits at the intersection of different disciplines, and by that nature makes just about everyone uncomfortable. And so if I think back to some of the conversations that I've had with investors early days and even recent days, generally speaking, tech investors are ill-equipped to think about things like regulation and things like clinical trials and really what a timeline looks like to bring a regulated product to market. And then for traditional biotech and healthcare investors, they tend to struggle with the agile and iterative nature of software. And so in a lot of ways, this is sort of a story which is, there's no intersection on the Venn diagram of this story. So I think really the perspective that we've taken, and this is for our conversations with investors, our conversations with payers, clinicians, patients, and even our own company, is just to be both advocates as well as storytellers. And I think what we really need to do is be able to break what are very complex issues down to their core elements and impart understanding with whoever it is that's sitting across the table from us.
Thank you.
And I see my team really living by this.
Thank you. And I want to take Mike's question and give everybody a quick chance to ask. At the end, in about 5 minutes, we're going to actually do a poll. The poll is not who is the most charming Prix Galleon award recipient 2020. You're all charming, you're all amazing, and you're all really championing innovation that can improve the human condition. The spirit of the Galleon, Prix Galleon Prize. So we're going to do, first of all, a quick poll. It's just popped up. We invite all of you to vote as well, our panelists to vote as well. I voted. I seem to have, on this poll, never gotten the majority answer, but that's okay. People like Mike and I and Bruno Cohen, the Secretary General of the Galleon Foundation, are outside the 9 dots folks, as I think you are. So as we close, and then I'm going to the very end return it to Mike for closing comments. See that? I was not there. I will say this, that I'd like each of you to go around very quickly and say to our listeners today, to your communities, one short sentence that really speaks to why our category has to continue to look at the unmet need. So to Mike's last question about, what's next, I'd like you to go a step beyond. Why is it that we need as an industry not to look at incremental innovation, but exponential or earth-shattering for people's lives innovation? We're going to go around quickly and then conclude. But before we do that, while you're thinking, I'll give you a moment to think. I want to thank a few people here. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of you. Our Prix Galleon 2020 award recipients. It's a great honor. I also want to acknowledge, of course, all of the nominees of Prix Galleon. They're really representative, as I think you would agree, of the best of the best. I want to acknowledge, of course, Dr. Awa Marie Kosek, who's going to be championing in 5 weeks Galleon Africa. I want to acknowledge the Secretary General of the Galleon Foundation, Bruno Cohen, for his extraordinary courage and persistence to make the Galleon Awards possible. I want to acknowledge all of our committee members, people like Mike and others who go through all the applications and make the difficult selections. I want to acknowledge all of the Galleon staff, both the technical and the communications, the organizational staff, who make this happen all year round. I want to acknowledge our forum participants. And again, I want to turn this back to something each of you have said. I want to acknowledge the patients who are our partners in drug development and discovery. And with that in mind, I want to turn to each of you and then give this to Mike to close. Just a few words really about why you feel earth-shattering, ground-changing innovation is so important to our society. Seng, you first, please.
Well, thank you very much again. I just want to again thank you for this recognition, this award. It does represent a recognition of the scientific innovation that led us to the development of this particular medicine that we call Vyndaqel. But this is just the first step. And there are 7,000 other rare diseases that are out there for which there's still a high level unmet medical need. And this award and this accomplishment on the part of what we've done here with Vyndaqel for ATTR-CM for us represents an important first step in the development of hopefully many more transformative therapies for other patients with rare indications.
Let's hope. Mel, your brief thoughts, please, on this.
We have no choice. The world around us changes so quickly and is fraught with so much danger that we have to be aggressively innovative and really shoot high. This is not a choice. We have to do this.
Wonderful. Brett, your thoughts, please.
There are so many people living a life with no hope. Breakthroughs in technology is what really impacts the lives of millions of people who previously had no hope and gives those people hope. It's investments in technology that give people hope who are suffering from diseases with no treatment options today. We have to continue.
Thank you. Corey, please, your thoughts.
At Pear, we are laser focused on making software mainstream medicine. We believe that there are over 300 opportunities to really directly redefine standards of efficacy with pieces of software. And I think the reason why that's so important is almost obvious. COVID has brought this into relief for every single one of us. And I think we owe it to patients to push for nothing but exponential innovation.
Thank you very much. Mike, I'm going to return the podium to you. I want to acknowledge you personally, your work as co-chair of Galleon Week. It's been an extraordinary lift, fantastic week of scientific innovation that can improve the human condition. Your career journey exemplifies exactly what Galleon is all about. Your closing comments, please.
Well, thank you, Gil, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to work with you again together. It's been a great.
It's my honor. It's my honor to work with you.
So I'll just first answer your question, and then I'll make a closing comment. And I think that we can improve the delivery of healthcare and access to care, and we must. But nothing can transform disease and the lives of people who live with them like a subcategory of innovation, which I call inventions. And we must continue to invent in order to improve the human condition. I want to thank this panel. This has been a great discussion, and again, extend my big congratulations to you and the teams that you lead that have made these tremendous contributions to human health. And I would say on behalf of the Galleon Foundation and these events of the past week, that it's our privilege to honor you. Thank you very much.
Congratulations all, and we look forward to 2021, another group of outstanding scientists, clinicians, engineers, business leaders to participate in our program. Be well, everyone. Take care.